Welcome back to Biomes. This week's topic was specifically requested by my mother, so we are talking about Cozumel Island in Mexico. So Cozumel Island is a very small island right off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. It's a pretty popular tourist destination. It has very beautiful beaches, lots of cool flora and fauna, and it's generally just a very nice place to go. It's also got a ton of biodiversity and a ton of different endemic species. There's quite a few different tree species, such as this one, the gumbo limbo tree, or there's also mahogany trees. There's a bunch of different coniferous trees as well, such as the Caribbean pine tree. There's also a couple different plant and shrub species that happen to be poisonous, such as this one, the poisonwood tree. Go figure, that the leaves and sap and berries are all poisonous. There's also yellow oleander that grows there. There's a good variety of native orchid species as well, including this one, the bird's nest orchid, which doesn't really look like the traditional orchid that everyone thinks of, but it is still an orchid and it is still very cool. There's also a good variety of cacti that live there as well, including the prickly pear cactus, the beaver tail cactus, and this one, the night blooming cereus cactus. There's many types of bird species that live there as well, which is very common in a bunch of islands. There's quite a few seabird species such as the brown pelican, but there's also a bunch of gull species that live there as well. There's also many endemic bird species, such as the Cozumel emerald, which is a species of endemic hummingbird that only lives on that island. There's also the endemic Cozumel great curassow, which is an odd-looking bird, but it's still very cool. Now, unfortunately, due to many factors, including over-tourism, habitat loss, etc., most of these species that are endemic to the island are endangered, or some of them are even possibly extinct. The possibly extinct birds include the Cozumel thrasher, which is another type of endemic bird that is unfortunately likely extinct, at least in the wild. They haven't been spotted in a long time, and lots of researchers and scientists do think that they are extinct, unfortunately. For many of these species, there's no 100% confirmation that they are in fact fully extinct, but there are quite a few species that are hypothesized to have gone extinct in the last couple years, unfortunately. Another, unfortunately, probably extinct animal on the island is the Cozumel Island fox, which isn't actually its own species. It's a subspecies of gray fox that has made its way over to the island and evolved into a separate subspecies, but unfortunately they haven't been spotted around in a while, and they are unfortunately likely extinct as well. Now, a endemic animal that is not extinct is the Cozumel coati, which is a subspecies of coati that has specifically evolved to live on the island, much like the fox, but these guys are doing a little bit better. This is actually a picture that my mother sent me, so this is one that she saw in person and asked me to identify what it is. So the Cozumel coatis are considered to be endangered, but they have been spotted just out and about, so they are doing better than some of the other endemic species. Now, there are a number of species that live on the island that are native but not endemic, including the American crocodile. There's also blue land crabs that are commonly found on there that just kind of hang out on land and just vibe. There's also a pretty substantial coral reef that lives there that is notable for its black coral. Like pretty much every single coral reef on Earth, it is in danger. There's lots of mass dying off of the coral, which is not good because coral reefs hold a ton of biodiversity. This one in specific has pretty much every type of marine animal you can think of. There's starfish, there's crabs, there's mollusks, all of that. They're found there. There's a couple very interesting things. That's including the endemic to the Cozumel Island coral reef. This is the splendid toadfish. I'm not sure actually if this is endangered. I feel like it is, but I can't remember what the internet told me. I feel like it's probably endangered, but it is a very cool looking fish that is endemic to the reef. The Cozumel coral reef is also home to a number of endangered sea turtle species, including the hawksbill turtle. Fortunately, there are quite a few conservation efforts going around on both the island and the coral reef surrounding it. But since this is such a popular tourist destination, conservation efforts are a little bit tricky sometimes, so if you are going to one of these island places that have a very delicate ecosystem with a very large amount of endemic species, especially endangered ones, please be mindful of like the ecosystem around you. Like when you go to these places, make sure you respect both the culture of the people who live there as well as the environment as a whole, because again, lots of these species aren't found anywhere else and they make their home here, and lots of them people tend not to think about, especially if they're like little fish or bugs or anything. People tend not to care as much about conservation of those. Regardless, all of the species that are found there are important to the ecosystem, so if you are going to these like big tourist destinations in really beautiful areas, just make sure you're being respectful when you go there. Either way, Cozumel Island is a very beautiful place with very interesting flora and fauna. Good place to check out as a tourist. Just be respectful and maybe learn a little bit about the environment before you go there, or while you're there. It'll be fun.